Okay, that's better. Okay, so let's start from the beginning again. And so I'm invited by the different maybe groups that you have on the campus to share a few views, maybe an overview. What is a route from engineering graduate to the professional engineer? I'm just going to show it as a presentation. I'm just going to click on this different slide. Maybe it's going to be easier. Okay, so for me, I'm a senior engineer at the Central Electricity Board. As I was telling you, I'm in a similar situation like you, but 15 years back maybe. Okay, we didn't have so much of information about how to get registration, and we had like scanty. We hear a bit about some information here and from there, but actually nowadays you have much more information. All the information that most of these actually all present on the CRPE website. We just need to have a look at these. But since we are at it, let's share maximum information. Is going to be useful for you. Okay, so basically what I'm going to cover today is going to be about engineering graduates and registered engineers. So we have quite a huge amount of engineering graduates, but only like 10% who actually register at the end of the cycle and so on. We are going to have an overview of the importance of going for registration. Is it an option, or is it like a compulsory maybe process that you need to go through? We are going to have a look at the legal provision. Okay, we have some laws which are going to which are attributed to registered and the council or engineers who needs to be registered, and those who don't and they work or the practice engineering. We are going to have a look at the CRPE, the council, what is it all about. Then the role of the professional engineer. Okay, we have professional engineer. What is their role in society? How are they going to behave? The registration process. This is going to be much more interesting for you. The training requirements. Okay, after the eligibility stage, we are going to go for the training. It's minimum 24 months of training. What is it about? What is comprised of these 24 months of training? We are going to have an overview of that. And then what next? Okay, what are the different steps that you need to take? Okay, so some statistics for you. Okay, I'm not going to lose you. I'm just going to put it like this. So statistics for 2019, from what I can gather, you had like 287 who applied for the eligibility stage. We had 60 who had to go through the interview. Okay, so at that point in time, who had to go through the interview? Those from the University of Mauritius who had first class and second class didn't have to go through the interview, but third class had to go through a short technical interview. This has changed slightly. We're going to talk on that later on. And then we have those first class or second class. They get there. Automatically means they need to apply. Definitely, they need to submit the required documents, and then they will get the eligibility certificate automatically. Those who went for interview, we had a pass rate of around 60%. And overall, let's say for stage 1, we have an overall success rate of 92%. For stage 2, we had around 124 applications. 94 went through the interview process, and we had a pass rate around 70%. This is for stage 2. Okay, so overall, we had different universities in Mauritius, which actually we have, let's call that around 4,000 engineering graduates per year. Okay, and only 15% actually out of these, we have 15% who graduate. Okay, we have those level 2, level 3 and so on. We have 600 of those. It's only not only in Mauritius, we have from universities from overseas like Australia, Malaysia and so on. We have around 600 Mauritian engineering graduates per year. Okay, the statistics date back to 2014, but basically it's approximately, we have slightly gone down a bit in terms of the number of students who choose to go for engineering, but basically it should be around the same figure. Okay, but now remember we have 600 engineering graduates per year in engineering, but we said that we have around 65 engineers who registered in 2019, which basically we have a proportion around only 10% who actually graduate. Okay, so right now we have the role at the CRPE, it's around 1,750 engineers. So it's an ongoing role, okay? If you get your number, if you die, it's not going to be attributed to someone else, so it's like a lifetime number that you're going to have. Now, why go for professional registration? It shows, first of all, the commitment of the professional engineer to practice engineering with a legal framework. So we have a legal framework, which we are going to see in a few minutes. It's going to reflect your degree of professional competence. So it's not only, you're not going to be a degree holder only, you are going to be a professional. So it's a huge difference in being a degree holder and a professional in your field. Usually required for engineering project management, procurement, or contract management. As an engineer, you may be working as an engineer, yes, but you have other avenues, like in project management. If you have a site to a project, you have a different maybe contract as well to manage. So you will need, basically, it's going to be like a prerequisite for you to work on these different maybe jobs. Okay, you need to be like a registered engineer. And by far and most, if you want to get into the government sector or in the parastatal body, you will need basically to be a registered engineer. This said, it doesn't mean that those who are working in private sectors don't need to be registered. We are going to come back to that in a short while. So ultimately, bottom line, it's just like you're getting a license to practice engineering independently. I was taking this example previously. Let's say you were learning how to drive your car. You go to the driving school. You have a monitor who is going to stay with you, who is going to give you maybe directions, what to do and what not to do. And then after you get your license, there's no one who's going to sit next to you, who's going to tell you what to do, when to brake, when not to brake, and so on. Similarly, in engineering, that's why you get 2 years, or it's minimum 2 years, of monitored or supervised practice. Someone who is like a registered engineer and who's going to supervise your work, he's going to give you assignments, who's going to guide you through the process until you get your registration. Okay, then you can practice, you can drive your engineering car by yourself. Yes, we talk about the Act. There's a provision for that. A Registered Professional Engineer Council Act dates back to 1966, quite old. So it defines what is meant by a registered engineer. So a registered professional engineer means a person registered as a professional engineer under this Act. So this Act clearly defines what is meant. How do we define a registered professional engineer? Only upon registration that you can call yourself a registered professional engineer, and you have an abbreviation that you use after your name, a post-nominal, which we call RPM, Registered Professional Engineer Mauritius. Okay, so this is a law, but what happens to those who contravene this law? Okay, we had prohibited practice as per this law, clause 19. Any person who, not being a registered professional engineer, so you have not registered with a council, but you take or uses the name or title of registered, so you call yourself a registered professional engineer. You are not registered with a council, but you're calling yourself a registered professional engineer, or any abbreviation. So instead of calling yourself registered professional engineer, you call yourself maybe a professional engineer or even an engineer. This is not allowed. This is prohibited practice. You can advertise or hold yourself, so you advertise yourself or you behave like a professional engineer. This is not allowed as per this law as well. Or you engage in the practice of professional engineering. You start to give advice, you sign drawings, you sign plans, you get involved in design activities. This is what we call the practice of engineering. So based on this law and this prohibited practice, you're going to be against this law. So what's going to happen for you? Okay, police will come after you. So since it is like a legal provision, you're going to get problems with the law. Okay, so you shall commit an offense and shall on conviction be liable for a first offense. So first offense is going to be 200 rupees. You can say yes, but 200 rupees is just like a big meal at McDonald's. Okay, or if you continue on subsequently, you continue with using this prohibited practice, the fine is going to be 500 rupees, and it's not all, it's an imprisonment to a term not exceeding 3 months. So you are going to go to jail. What does that mean? Going to jail. So remember that you need to have a how do we call that, a certificate of morality. Okay, I think now it's called certificate of character. So all that are going to be noted in your certificate of character. Okay, so it's not only like 3 months of imprisonment or 500 rupees of fine. It's the consequence of that goes far beyond. Okay, how is it going to impact your professional life after that? Okay, not only professional, but so many things for which you need to have this character certificate and so on, certificate of character. So that's why you need, as soon as you complete your degree, you need to start the process of getting your registration. Okay, now the role of the professional engineer. First one, always the first tenet is to promote safety and health. We think it's not only about doing design, doing beautiful things, beautiful buildings and so on. It's about promoting health and safety. Okay, second one is protection of the environment. Okay, nowadays environment, it forms part of our design. Whatever design we are doing, where we need to integrate, we need to factor in the environment aspect. Areas of competence. So as a professional engineer, I'm an electrical and electronic engineer. I cannot practice engineering in civil. I say, okay, I'm a registered engineer, but I'm giving advice on civil engineering. I can't do that. I need to practice the engineering in my field of competence. Field of competence, I'm an electrical engineer, but my field of experience is in power system. I have like a professional who has been working in the power system field for 15 years. But then, can I give advice for maybe someone at AML? Maybe not. So if something that I'm not aware of, because the field of engineering, even electrical engineering, is so wide. Okay, so I can give advice, I can pronounce myself on things which I'm aware of, I'm confident in. I think we got disconnected. Let me just share the slide again. Hope you are seeing it. Okay, so we were speaking about, okay, hope you can see it. I think the mic and so on is fine. Okay, so I was speaking about the competence, or areas of competence you need as a professional engineer. You need to know what is your competence, on which items, on which topic, on which field you can give advice and so on. This is basically what we call the practice of engineering. Okay, now let's have a look at the council. We have been talking about the law. So we have the council is here to regulate the law. Okay, to see that the law is being abided by each and every one as far as engineers are concerned. So what makes up, what is constituted, and the council itself is constituted of several members. We have 2 registered professional engineers who are public officers. We have the 1 registered engineer from Société de Technologie Agricole Sucrière de l'Île Maurice. We have 2 registered professional engineers from the IEM. The IEM is the Institute of Engineers Mauritius. It's another body. And then we have 1 registered professional engineer from the CEB. Okay, and then they organize themselves. We have a chairman, we have each and different members, and then we have the contact person. Okay, he is the registrar of the council, and I'm going to share his details later on in this presentation. Okay, so we call it's the CRPE. What is its role? So the council shall keep an updated roll of all registered professional engineers. So who are registered? And it's not only about getting registration, you need to pay your yearly fees as well for you to stay on the roll. Okay, and then legal matters. What is meant by legal matter? Let's say you have seen that the law, the act that we have dates back to 1966, so it needs to be updated. Okay, the fine is not reflecting the degree of the fault that someone is doing. Okay, maybe from 200 rupees it needs to come to maybe 20,000 or 1,000 Mauritian rupees and so on, depending. So who is going to look into the issue of maybe revising the law, anything happening to engineers and so on? So they are looking into the legal matters. We have also the IEM, who is, we can talk about the IEM maybe later on. So different bodies who looks after the welfare of engineers in Mauritius. So they are going, most important, they are going to endorse application for stage 1 and stage 2. Today we are going to spend much more time on stage 1. We are going to have an overview of stage 2 as well, but stage 2 is another presentation in itself. Then they also safeguard engineering practice. Okay, they look after the welfare of engineers. Previously, like this morning, they had even a webinar on effective meetings, how to organize meeting, and I understand that it's going to be like a recurrent feature. So how to keep engineers, so CPDs here, continuous professional development, but it's not like part of the act of the law itself, but it's always good for engineers to get used to CPD to have to grow and not stay where they are. So let's have a look at the registration process, stage 1. We have, so we are here, engineering graduate, fresh with work experience locally. So let's call that an engineering graduate like you. You're going to complete, you're going to get your certificate, you're going to graduate very soon. You need to apply for eligibility stage. This is stage 1. Okay, what does this mean? What does it mean? You need to have a form, you need to fill it, you need to maybe complement that with several certificates, documentation, and then you submit it to the council. They are going to check your, verify the qualifications and so on. We have a flow chart here to show that academic qualifications acceptable or not. If it is acceptable, you are going to issue you your eligibility certificate right away. If it is not acceptable, what is meant by not acceptable? I have put a note there. An assessment is not generally required. So basically, as soon as you apply, you should be getting it, except in exceptional cases. Okay, maybe if you're holding a pass instead of a maybe, so you have first class, second one, so 2-1 or 2-2, and then third class, and then maybe a pass. So maybe if your certificate is not maybe, if they want to check your level, your engineering background, they will go most likely for a small interview just to check whether you have the basics of engineering. Initially, like in the past, only first class and second class were having automatic issue of eligibility certificate. Third class had to go through the interview process, or from other universities as well. But right now, it is much more easier for you, if I can say easier. Okay, it's much more fluid. Okay, the process, you just apply, you submit the document. If you're having 1, 2, or third class, it's going to be much easier for you to get your eligibility. Okay, so if you need to go through the interview,
well,
yes.
You wish me to elaborate?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think you all can see me. So let me present myself. I am Devan Dalia. I am an electrical engineer by profession. I am director of profile for consulting engineers, and I am presently the chairperson of CRPE. In fact, since the beginning of this year, we have reviewed the procedure for stage 1 registration. Maybe I'll just take 3 minutes to explain why we have done that. So in the past, I was myself a graduate from University of Mauritius in 1979. So at that time, that degree was automatically considered for stage 1 registration, and it is still the case up to now. So until 2018, graduates from University of Mauritius in first and second class were given automatic registration for stage 1, and graduates from other universities, UDM, UTM, or whatever, or even graduates coming from overseas, had to undergo an interview. So we thought at that time that it was not fair to many of those attending other universities than UOM, and also from those coming from overseas, why this different treatment. So we decided that in 2018, but as from January 2000 and in 2019, as from January 2020, we're going to have everyone applying for eligibility stage 1 undergo this assessment, this interview. But for 1 year, even maybe less than 1 year, this process has been going on, we realized there are many students who are unable to get through the process stage 1, and then we ask them, go and do some further learning and come back in 3 months or 6 months, depending how they perform at the interview. So what do the students or what do the young graduates do if we ask them to come back? Where do they go and do this additional learning, or where do they go to improve their knowledge? There are no other facilities locally to do that. So we realized that in fact some is just because we have not been able to have a good interview or to satisfy the examiners, so they were retained from getting the stage 1 and they were penalized a bit unfairly. And we thought that this was not correct, and we decided in December 2020 to give everyone the equal chance, that is, we waive completely but interview. And as from January this year, we give automatic, between commas, automatic registration, stage 1 eligibility to all applicants. Why I say automatic? I mean that we normally look at your degree, so we do not assess you. We look at your degree and we look at the programs of the institutions, and based on the program, we believe that if the institution had found it fit to give you a first class or a second class, so why should we now cross-check your capability because you had already, this has already been done by the institution. So, stage 1 eligibility is given to all those who apply, except in cases where we do not have sufficient information on the program, that is a university whose program we do not have much information, or a graduate, a young graduate was with a very low mark, like a pass, and then we would like to see why it happened. We then look at what are the I would say the results in HSC, for example, at 11, to see whether this candidate will be can be considered. Only in exceptional cases we undertake interviews. Otherwise, the eligibility automatic. The format of a letter of eligibility has therefore changed. So last year, when we write to you, we say you are and found to be eligible for stage 1 registration, and then you are asked to you can start undergoing training. So the format has not changed. We mentioned that the degree in, for example, in electrical engineering from the University of Mauritius is found acceptable, and you may embark on training. So we just address the letter has to be addressed to you, obviously, to applicants. Give a recognition to a person, to applicant, but we give a recognition to a degree, and then we ask the applicant, okay, now that we have given you this recognition, we have given you the degree, and we ask you to undergo that training. So that training now is for a minimum of 24 months. In many cases, it will have, because it depends on the candidate, it depends on the young graduate. If you are very good, most probably after 24, 25 months, your report is ready, you can apply, and from what at the interview, you get your registration. Others might take some more time because I would say between commas less good in terms of developing their skills during that 24-month training. Okay, and the second thing that we have done is that attached to this letter of eligibility, we also give you a sheet where we take this. You can see on the screen, where we detail, it is already in our requirements, in CRPE's requirements, so we detail what are the different criteria or attributes, we call it, that you need to be trained. So we will go through what, I know Ismail will go through what I may just highlight. when you go on training, you are supposed to be on training. You are not supposed to work and do the same thing every day. And after 2 years, you come back and say you have completed 2 years training. You have to do a proper training. Your organization who takes you must have a proper training program for you, and this is my will highlight on that. I just also want to mention that stage 2 registration, that is registration as a professional engineer, is in the law. So this we cannot do much about it, because you have to complete your report, do an assessment, interview, and then we give you registration. Stage 1 eligibility is not in the law. It is just a process that in the course at CRPE we decided to implement, because when one employer offers you a job, the first question that the employer wants to know is your degree accepted for registration. So they do not want to employ you, and then after 2 years, when you go and apply for registration, then CRPE tells you your degree is not acceptable. So many employers want to be reassured, and this is where CRPE decided to issue that eligibility letter, because many employers request that eligibility letter from the candidate when they apply for a post in the public or private organization. And the second thing is that you are aware about this training scheme for engineers at the Ministry of Labour. Ismail would elaborate on that, I am sure. If not, I can talk over it. So to be able to enroll on the program, you need to have an eligibility from CRPE. So this is another reason why at CRPE we give us eligibility certificate. So to conclude my small, it's not a presentation, intervention, is that it is not necessary for you to have an eligibility to apply for stage 2 registration. If you didn't have an eligibility, you do not have a letter, and you have undergone a proper training, and you are being able to show that you have been employed for some time, and you have had a proper supervision, but you do not have an eligibility letter, you don't have eligibility, so you should not have stopped your training. And it's also from the date that enters the training from, or you get an employment with a proper training, okay? With or without the letter of eligibility. Okay. So I am still there. I will still follow that presentation. So any query you can raise it, and together with Ismail, I will try to reply if you have any query. Okay, Ismail, you can continue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dalia. Mr. Dalia is the chairman of the CRPE, so you're getting the fresh information from him, the new process and so on. I think it's much more easier now. It's much more clear cut. So how to apply now? Okay, basically this is like an animation which I won't play just in case I lose track of this PowerPoint. Okay, so you go on to the CRPE website, okay, CRPE Mauritius, and then you just need to click, I think here is download form. You just need to take this cursor and put it around here, and you're going to get the form. You can download the form. Okay, so now eligibility appointment stage. Request an early appointment with the registrar by email to submit the application form. So you can download the form, you need to fill it, okay, and for that you will need to get the signature of a registered engineer, okay, an already registered engineer as well. So the subject line, now you need to submit all your documents already. You want to submit it to the council. So you need to get an appointment from the registrar. So send an email. The subject line should be CRPE appointment R1 or request for appointment to apply for the registration stage 1. Okay, you have two email address. It's engineeringcouncil@mail.gov.mu or you can carbon copy that to crpemauritius@gmail.com. Okay, two email address, but use all of these, both of these when you're sending your email. So what you need basically to submit alongside your application is your ST certificate, a copy of your ST certificate, HSC, engineering degree, as well as your mark sheet or transcript. Okay, you know the sheet where you get all the modules that you have done and how you have been awarded the different maybe marks or grade in that. This is a transcript, and your birth certificate as well. This is for Mauritian national. If you're coming from abroad, you need to have your passport and different things as well. Okay, now waiting time. So basically verification.
While I just want to add that
yes.
we have started a program of digitalization of our process at CRPE.
Okay.
So as from April, it's not 1st April, it's 2nd April. As from April, we are going to receive applications online. So all these documents that applicants have to fill and deposit at CRPE, they would be able to upload online and get their also eligibility online. So we are making it easy, facilitating the task for all the young applicants. Okay.
Okay. So that's great. So everything is going to be online for you. So much better even. Okay. So basically, from information that I have, it actually takes 4 to 6 weeks for it to be like for them to check your certificates and everything. It's maximum for you to get your eligibility certificate. Why is it good mentioning it here? Because at times student they wait, or not student now, it's like engineering graduate, they wait to get for a job has been advertised, and they request you, one of the requirements is you need to have an eligibility certificate from the CRPE. The deadline is maybe in 2 weeks time. It is then that they are going to rush to the CRPE and try to get their eligibility certificate. No, it should not be like that. So as soon as you complete, you get all your transcript and everything from the university, the next day or even the same day, you can download the form, fill it, and look for the request an appointment with the registrar. So don't wait for a job to be advertised to start this process. Start it right from the beginning, maybe as soon as you get all the necessary documentation that you need to submit. Okay, the transcript and the certificates and everything. The waiting time is around maybe 1.5 months. So don't wait, don't miss chances just because you didn't apply on time. Okay, you need to pay. Yes.
We have reduced with time maximum of 2 weeks now.
Okay, so that's better. So
because we don't need to council. So if the degree, the chairman and by circulation can give approval, so we do not have to wait for the monthly meeting to process the stage 1 eligibility. So the time is reduced by all those off.
Okay, that's better. So many good news for you today. Okay, so everything is in your to your benefit. Okay, but you need, I think this is not with the 500 application fees. You need to pay 500 rupees with your application when you're filing in your application. I don't know online how it's going to work, maybe transfers and so on, but there's a small fee that you will need to pay. Okay, this is the letter that Mr. Dalia was talking about earlier on. Okay, that you get when you get your eligibility. Okay, and you have, this is given to you about how much training, what will be the time that you will need to allocate for different what we call competencies in your training. Okay, you're going to have 24 months of training. Like I'm just taking the example for the first one. 40 weeks of these should be allocated to engineering design, problem solving and investigation, and so on. So you just need, so it's just a rough value. Okay, 40 weeks, just to give you an idea about how much time you will need to devote for these different maybe criteria. These are going to be used later on for you as an assessment to get your registration. Okay, so we have talked about, okay, engineering, you need to complete your engineering degree, 4 years, you need to secure eligibility, but then there's no work, isn't it? You will say, okay, what now? What do you need to do? Okay, so government has listened to you. So the government has found that there's a bottleneck. Okay, so many engineering graduates who are coming out. Oh, remember we talked about the 600 and then about 60 registering per year. So there is a bottleneck. There is somewhere where the process is being is not progressing. So government has seen that, and government has introduced what we call the TES, Trainee Engineer Scheme, where government is providing 2 years practical training. This training that you need to get for your registration, actually government is providing you that, okay, in a special scheme. I think it was announced in the budget of 2016-17 for the placement of trainee engineers for you to get your registration. So you are paid a stipend, okay, around 24,000 rupees per month, okay, and then you need to, if you need more information on that, you can apply. It's actually the Ministry of Labor who is following up on this issue, and this is a website that you need to log on to, and you get more information, and you have the phone number as well to get further information. So what are the objectives of the TES? It's to enable graduates in engineering to qualify for registration with the CRPE. Okay, you need mandatory to have minimum 24 months of training under, it's not a training, under supervised training. We are going to come back to that. And subsequently to operate as fully fledged engineer. You're going to get your license after you register. This is what it is all about. So the requirement for enlistment of engineers for the trainee scheme, degree holders, yes, plus, oops. Okay. So degree holders plus you have the stage 1. Yes, but c'est internet là, non? Okay, I think I was disconnected again. Here we are back. I think you can see me and hear me. So I was talking about the TES. So the requirement is to have your degree and your stage 1, the eligibility, this which we have been talking about right away. Okay, so now important note for you. Engineering graduates employed as technical officers, okay, there are some who join a particular company or organization where they are working as technical officers. They have got their degree as well, but a technical officer as such cannot go through the registration process. You need to be like a trainee engineer. If you are getting the necessary training, you cannot be working as technical officers and simultaneously doing your registration. So this is basically, this training path is not an approved process, and be careful about that, because you may be completing 2 years or 3 years, and then when you submit your report, it's not accepted by the council. So just be careful about this one. So as at about the TES scheme, as at 31st of September 2020, they have received around 1,212 applications, out of which 403 have already been placed in the public sector, 207 in the private sector, and there's currently a balance of around 600 who are waiting to be placed in different organizations or different companies. Okay, so there's a balance. So, but as soon as you complete, just register so that you can join, you can be in the waiting list as well. Okay, so the training period now. So yes.
I just want to ask on this.
Okay.
There was two budgets, 60 to 100 already on investment.
Mm-hmm.
There is an issue, because to be able to place graduate students or not graduate students, young graduates and new graduates, being in private and public sector, we have to have a right organization and also the training. So mostly students in mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechatronics engineering are getting easily a placement, because there are many organizations who are offering this training. But you know, some graduates in a very specific, like I can mention chemical, there is a long case at the Ministry of Labor. Chemical, environmental and like engineering, some specific fields of engineering where there's not much demand, so there are some studies in getting a placement. Okay. So that is one. It's not always good news because you have shown the number of young graduates who have been able to get a placement, but unfortunately at Council we have also to report to the Ministry of Labour how many of these young graduates are in fact doing a proper training, getting the right training in the organization. And there is a scheme, not a scheme, there is a program which has been set up by the Institution of Engineers with Ministry of Labour and financed by Ministry of Finance, where IEM, the Institution of Mauritius, is organizing various workshops and mentoring to these graduates. But unfortunately, everything is not perfect because when the graduates go and work, they sometimes here, and then they come back after 3 years, and then they say, okay, I have completed my training. And there was at some time the ministry was asking whether we should continue with the program because it's public money, public funds being invested, and more than 50% of those completing the trainees do not even submit their report to council. So it is not training. They are just the young graduates are just taking this opportunity to get a salary of 24,000 rupees for 2 years, but they are not taking that training serious. So we have to review what we didn't want the ministry to cancel that training scheme, but we are trying to see ways and means how to enforce in some way to the young graduates and that scheme, but after the training they really come and submit a report to council. I just want to add that engineers are the only professional for whom the ministry set up the program. Like architects, open surveyors, project managers, does not have this program. But other professionals in other sectors like lawyers, land surveyors have made requests. We have not been considered. So young graduates are lucky, but the ministry has set up a program, so you must take maximum advantage of it and also have a proper training and come to CRPE so that those coming after you also benefit from the same training. I can mention that funds have been allowed when I look at the budget over the next 3 years. So until 2024, there is some which has been allowed for this training program. So let's make it successful and also so that future graduates also benefit from the same facility. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalia. So it's very good that you have emphasized on this issue. Actually, there are some graduates who have completed their 24 months under the scheme and they have not gone for registration. So what is happening is that government is investing so much of public funds in your training, and it is an opportunity which is being given to you, but they are not like submitting their reports and so on. So what's happening? How is government doing that? Is it like a waste of funds? So it's up to you when you go through this scheme to show government that yes, we are here and we have gone through the process. We are like comme si redevant envers la government, and that you are submitting your report, you are getting registered, so that others coming after you, they can benefit from the same scheme. Okay. So let's now talk about, let's say you have got your eligibility, you maybe have joined an organization under the TES or join another organization and you're working as a trainee engineer. Okay. Oops, I'm hearing a few sounds now. Okay. So the set period of time is 24 months of supervised training. It's a minimum. So you can't submit your report in 23 months. So it needs to be 24 plus. It can be It can be 30 months, it can be more, depending on what is the time required for you to get all the necessary skills, all the necessary competencies that you are going to be assessed on later. Okay, so basically we said it's supervised training. What do we mean by supervised training? So it needs to be you need to get your supervisor, he needs to be a registered professional engineer with a council, number one. Number two, he needs to be at least to have at least 4 years of post-registration experience. So he should not be someone who has registered last year and he's supervising you right away. He needs to get 4 years after his registration. He will then be able to supervise you. Number three, he needs to be in the same field as you are. You can't like be supervised by a civil engineer but you are from an electrical engineering background. Okay, your first degree is electrical engineering, you're supervised by a civil engineer, it doesn't work. It needs to be in the same field. And fourth, he needs to be duly registered during the said period. We said that okay, when you register, you pay the fees for registration, then on a yearly basis you need to continue settling your fees with the council for you to remain on the roll. So during this time, okay, for you to be practicing as engineer, you need to remain on the roll and you need to be paying on a yearly basis your fees to the CRPE. And this engineer who is supervising you, he needs to be paying his fees as well. Okay, now let's come to an important point, because since day one you need to start what we call this good practice, which is about proper recording. Okay, when you go on site, you go work and so on, you need to have your notebook, your hardbound copybook and so on. You need to write down, you need to note everything what's happening, not everything but relevant things which are happening, which you will need to then transfer, okay, to your report afterwards. So let's say you are going on a site, there's some wiring diagram, you need to check, to draw it in your own way. When the new thing that you have learned, what is it, their wiring diagram, why is it connected to earth? All these different things are going to be helpful for you when you're going to translate that into your report later on. Okay, basically initially you had this type, okay, and but nowadays people, the young engineers will tell you, okay, but I'm using my mobile phone, I can take pictures, I can note and scribe on it and everything, take note. But then your mobile phone, it can be corrupted at any one point, you can lose your data, you can use your pictures and so on. Good, you can use that, but then as soon as you reach office, maybe on a weekly basis, you can transfer all the information into a proper maybe document, in a Word document and so on. And then don't forget to always back up your files. Okay, during my period as supervising people, I've seen maybe mobile phone being lost, you have lost your pictures, you have lost your data, your laptop was lost, stolen from home, your report maybe during the last month where you are finalizing everything crashes and you don't have any backup. Okay, so good practice is that you save your backup on different points. You can even backup in cloud, on your mail. You know everything now where you can back up your things so that you don't lose this valuable information. Okay, you are also advised, not advised, but it is part of the process, you need to keep a training record book. You can download that from the CRPE website. So engineer under training must submit to the supervising engineer a quarterly report. That is, every 3 months you need to submit to your supervisor what you have been doing, what were the works which were allocated to you, any activities, any assignments, so that you keep track on what you are doing and your supervisor is monitoring as well. Here, as soon as, so it needs to be filled in every 3 months, and then it needs to be signed by your supervising engineer every 3 months as well. Okay, because it has happened that, okay, you may be in an organization where you are moving into different departments, different sections, maybe training 3 months here, 6 months over there, but you say, okay, but maybe at the last minute when I'm going to get my report ready, I'm going to fill it and get this engineer to sign my report, my training logbook. But then these engineers maybe has flown to Canada, they have changed work, they have stopped working for this company, they're working for another consulting firm. Now it's much more, it's difficult, and I say very difficult, to get these engineers to sign your report book or your logbook. So be careful about that. As soon as you complete 3 months, get him sign everything for you and keep it handy. Okay, questions now for you. We are talking about the technical report. At what time should you write the report? Maybe after 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or after 23 months. Let's say we are targeting 24 months to submit our report. So maybe what is the best time for us to start writing the report? So you can use your lifeline. You have 50-50, phone a friend, or the audience. So basically we try this when we are in a face-to-face training. So the good answer is none of these. Okay, you should start writing your report on day one itself. This is my advice which I'm giving you. Okay, as soon as you start working on the first day, you come back home, you open a Word document and name it my registration report. Okay, this is a huge step, believe me, in getting your report on time. So the first step has been done, and then it's going to be easier for updating the document, because chapter 1 and chapter 2, or you can even write it at the beginning of your training. We're going to see what is meant by chapter 1 and chapter 2. So A, B, C, D are all wrong. It needs to be done on day 1. When deadline is too close, okay, we have seen, I've been checking reports and so on. When students, well, not as students now, when engineering graduates who have undergone training, they submit their report at the last minute, this is what you are going to see. Initially, the report has been, the English they have been using is quite good. The formatting is good, but then chapter 3 and chapter 4, which was maybe the most important chapters, it is seen that it has been backlay, as we say. Okay, so be careful about that. Start writing your report on day 1 itself. It may not be fully formatted at the beginning. Just put the different information, the drawings, the schematics, the flowchart and everything. Get it ready for when you can compile maybe at a later stage. Okay, now let's talk about the report. Okay, so we are currently in stage 2. We have completed stage 1. You got to eligibility. Let's go quickly through what is meant by stage 2. It is like another training, but it's important for you to get an understanding what is lying ahead for you for your report writing. You have 6 chapters basically. Okay, chapter 1 is going to be about the background. So it's about you. What you need to write is about an introduction about you. So I completed my degree from University of Mauritius with maybe electrical and electronic engineering, maybe in which year. Okay, and what have you been doing since then? Maybe I've worked in this company, this and so on. So it's your professional employment history. Then you need to write time utilization. Remember, you said 14 weeks in engineering design, problem solving and so on. So you need to have like a pie chart. The best way to represent that is in terms of a pie chart. Your time utilization, how much time have you devoted to engineering design in your own field or allied engineering? What is allied engineering now? Let's say you are in electrical electronic, or let's call that electrical basically. But when you're going to work, when you're going to attend sites, you're going to like talk with friends, interact with other engineers, it's not only going to be in a specific field of electrical engineering. You're going to interact with civil engineers, with mechanical engineers. If you're in building services, it's going to be a whole set of different fields of engineering that you're going to work with. So this is what we call allied engineering. So you're going to devote some time to allied engineering, but it's not going to be like 60-70% of your time which is going to be allied engineering. Most of it should be in your field. Okay, and there's some part of administrative as well, so process flows, maybe procurement and so on. So these are part of administrative processes that you will need to report on. Chapter number 2 is going to be, so chapter number 1 is about you, what you have been doing. Chapter number 1 was about you. Chapter number 2 is about your training environment. So the nature of engineering environment you are exposed to as a trainee. So you have joined a specific company. What is this company about? Okay, what engineering things are they doing? Okay, this is you're telling maybe the reader what your company is all about, specifically in engineering. Your company may be wide. Okay, it's a huge maybe company where you have a specific job there as an engineer, as a trainee engineer. What have you been looking at? So you need to explain the complexity of the activities or operations at the training organization. Okay, go into maybe the details about what is the engineering process happening over there. Okay, and maybe a bit about your role as well, where you're situated. Okay, you have it here. It's still in chapter 2. You're going to show that in terms of an organigram. Organigram is a structure about who is the director. You have maybe head of department, different organization, different strategic business unit. You have maybe a senior engineer, you have an engineer, and here you are as a trainee engineer. Your reporting line is your engineer and the senior engineer and so on. And do you have people working under you? It may happen that you have maybe technicians working under you. If you're going on a site, you're managing a project and so on. Show all that, because if you're having someone working under you, you will be able to show your leadership skills, which is one of the statement of competencies that you will need to show. So chapter number 2 is about giving an overview about the training organization you are working at, the organigram, where are you, who are your supervising engineers. Don't forget, you need to, we mentioned about the different criteria for someone to be eligible to supervise you. So who is your supervising engineer or engineers? You can have different supervising engineers if you're moving around in different sections, or if maybe if one engineer has gone to another department, someone else has come to replace him, you may be having different supervising engineers. There's a scheme as well which we call the external supervision. It may happen that you have joined an organization where there's no one maybe eligible to supervise you as such. Okay, so you may request, okay, for an external supervision. How does it work? Basically, you have you and you have this, maybe you need to look for someone who is ready, who's willing to supervise you. Remember, same field, 4 years post registration, enroll with a CRPE and so on. He's willing. Now your company needs to be willing that this, not only willing but agree that this engineer from another maybe company is willing to supervise you, and the company where this engineer is working, his company is to be agreeable of this setup as well. So basically everyone, you need to be willing and agree. This external supervision needs to be agreeable. Your company as well as his company needs to be agreeable, so that you have like 4 people who needs to be agreeable for this setup. And you need to inform the CRPE as well about this arrangement that you're doing. Okay, now chapter 1 completed. Chapter 2, chapter 3 is going to be about the nature. Now you're getting into the engineering aspect. Number 1, report on engineering activities of the organization. Demonstrate initiation into activities. Okay, it's not only, okay, I'm going to the gym and I'm watching people doing some gyms and so on, some exercise, going on the treadmill and so on. But you need to now to demonstrate that, yes, I've been to the gym, I have maybe gone on the bench press, I'm doing the treadmill. So demonstration into initiation. You are getting involved, you are assisting to some different maybe design activities, problem solving, troubleshooting, maintenance. You are getting involved in the daily activities of the organization. Maybe projects you have worked on, okay, give details about projects you have been participating in. Awareness, familiarity, and appreciation of engineering activities. As I told you, engineering education is from universities is going to be different from what you are going to see at the workplace. You're going to use maybe 10 to 15% at most of what you have learned, but then there are going to be new things that you are going to learn, practical things, but you will need to use your maybe HSC physics and level 1 and level 2 of engineering to be able to understand and to be able to solve for problems. Okay, this is what we call awareness. So you are aware about maybe the terms they are using, the equipment they are using, and show some familiarity about if you are like in a utility, let's say for like the CEB, you will need to understand what is meant by a transformer, how is a transformer connected, what is a low voltage, what is a high voltage. This is what we say it's about the awareness, and the testing, the commissioning of transformers. What is it all about? Still on chapter 3, understand and apply basics law of physics. So engineering, when you go into the workplace, you may be seeing different things which may look complicated, but ultimately it all boils down to your basic law of physics and basic engineering principles. Okay, the example which I like to give is if you're going to measure earth resistance, earth resistivity, you use a specific equipment, different method, different maybe brand names as well. We have one which we call 4-spike method, but the underlying principle ultimately is Ohm's law. So you're injecting current, you're measuring voltage, you can calculate V is equal to IR, you can calculate what is the resistivity, what is the resistance, and then the resistivity of the soil. Okay, so maybe a complete, maybe not a complicated, but an elaborated setup, piece of equipment, you go on site and everything, but the underlying principle remains basic law of physics and engineering. This is what is required from you to understand what's happening behind the scene. We are going to talk about software as well. We need engineers to be able to do what we call hand calculation. We are going to do that in chapter 4, but then it is important for you to be able to use software as well. So your reporting in chapter 3 should be in terms of diagrams, schematic or block diagrams and so on. It's not only, engineers should not be only in typing, in writing literature and so on. We communicate much better in terms of drawing, schematics and diagrams and so on. Okay, so we have seen 3 chapters till now, chapter number 1, chapter number 3, chapter number 1, 2 and 3. Number 4 is about personal contribution. What have you achieved? So first thing is active involvement in design activities. Design, I put it in red because you need as an engineer to be able to demonstrate that you can do design. Okay, design is not like inventing the wheel. It may be like improving a specific maybe process. Okay, if you are maybe if you're working on a construction of a new building, definitely there are design activities over there. As a power system engineer, let's say there's a new morcellement coming up. How do I power these houses? Okay, where do I install the transformer? What is the type of transformer? What is the network? I'm going to go underground or still use overhead? What are the pros and cons? Why do I need? So you can work out different scenarios and so on. So this is part of design activities. Monitoring engineering metrics at various levels. It can be maybe pollution level, maybe the amount of pollution or pollutant being expelled to the environment. You're monitoring that. You see it's too much, it's above a specific threshold. You can work out with your supervising engineer a method by which you can control that, maybe lower the level of contamination and so on. And then remeasure again, and you see what is the difference. Metrics can be in different aspects, different ways, different fields that you are working. Handwritten calculation, what is meant by handwritten and first principle? As I said, maybe using Ohm's law, within Kirchhoff current law for engineering students, or Archimedes principles for those in different other fields like civil and so on. So using all these basic laws which you have learned, okay, we're not going into complicated like Fourier analysis or things like that. It's always using simple terms to explain difficult things. Einstein has said that you can say that you understand a principle if you can explain it to a 6-year-old kid. Okay, so if you're able to explain it in very simple terms, so this can show, this demonstrates that you are able to understand, you have understood the principles correctly. Again in chapter 4, reports submitted on problem solving. As I used to say, engineers join an organization to solve engineering problems. We don't join an organization to create problems. So definitely we have problems, we meet with problems come up every day. Okay, so we are here to solve problems. How do you go about solving problems? You can put that in your report as well. There are different techniques which I won't elaborate on, but you can look into the fishbone diagram, the 5 why techniques, how to solve, get to the root cause of the problem. We have engineering assignment. As a supervisor, I give my trainees engineer assignments. Okay, maybe design a specific part of the line, calculate the sag, calculate the tension and so on. These are assignments which I'm giving to my engineers. Decision making techniques. If you are involved in decision making, how are you doing the decision? It can be technical decision making, it can be related to financial decision, maybe NPV calculation for projects, financial part, or IRR calculation. If this doesn't ring any sound for you, any bell for you right now, when you go into the field, you go to the workplace, you're going to learn about these different techniques. Okay, if you have help, you have contributed in system improvement, you can write that as well in personal contribution. Okay, chapter number 5 now is about, we mentioned about going through the first principle, hand calculations and so on. It is also important to learn, to show understanding that you know new techniques or new maybe software. Okay, like for cable sizing, I advise my engineers to do it in hand calculation using all the different factors and so on. But you can't do that for all design. You need to be able to show that you're able to use a specific software as well to do the calculation. It can be an elaborated software, or it can be as simple as using Microsoft Excel. Okay, you can input different parameters. No need to go through a different process. Only input 1 or 2 parameters, the calculation is done for you. Okay, this is part of analytical tools as well. Or you have lots of tools that you can use, as I said, for measuring resistance, for using testing. Testing instead, different tools that you are using. You need to put that in chapter number 5. This is use of computers, CAD/CAM drawings and so on, rendering, so lots nowadays that you can use. Then chapter number 6 is about a conclusion, giving your own perception of a training. It's a short chapter, usually 1 or 2 pages. Any shortcoming and improvement that you think should be mentioned, should be worth mentioning in the report, you can add that in chapter number 6. Okay, so basically 6 chapters which we have run through, but if you want more information on that, we have another training which has been recorded. You can request for that. It's on YouTube anyway, about how it's like we are expanding these 6 chapters mostly for those who are undergoing training, and it is interesting as well. Now, besides this, you need to be able to show competencies. Your assessment in terms of stage 2 is going to be based on specific competencies. Okay, it's not about your technical knowledge. Technical knowledge as such has been assessed by the university. Yes, you will need technical know-how, yes, for you to apply it as an engineer, but then on top of that, you will need to get additional competencies. I'm just going to run through them maybe quickly. Application of scientific engineering principle. So this is if you have done chapter number 4. So application, you will need to show how you have applied scientific or engineering know-how, maybe in design activities. Approach to new technology. This is maybe in chapter number 5. Or if you are improving any process, this will be in chapter number 4. Problem solving is going to appear in number 4. Conducting an experiment, maybe impedance measurement of maybe for concrete, how much strength they have, different ways for different equipment, setup and so on. Material is so important. I think the question of material science is compulsory during the interview. So when you're going to choose, maybe if I take my example for cables, different types of cables, I have aluminum cables, copper cables. What is the difference? Why would I choose aluminum instead of copper cables? Maybe in concreting, in reinforcement and so on, why are you using specific materials? So important is you will need to report on that in your report, and you will be assessed. I think it's a compulsory assessment in terms of competencies for stage 2. Project management tools and technique. If you have not done it at university, you are going to learn it. And most probably I'm going to run a training next week or week after on project management as well. But how do you manage a project? Is the project on time? Is it ahead of schedule, behind schedule? How is the fund being managed? Is it like over budget? You have reached 50% of your project, but funds is completed. Okay, what are the tools that you need to use? This is some part on project management. Financial management is about budgeting. Okay, you budget, you get approval for your budget, then how you spend, how you monitor the spending. Okay, any report that you need to submit. And there's also maybe different, if you need to choose between different projects, NPV calculation, IRR calculation. Procurement, so important. If you want to buy something, okay, let's say you are in government or private sector, you can't just look for someone and you buy it from there. You need to go through a procurement process, and you have the law, the Public Procurement Act and the Public Procurement Regulations that you will need to know. And even though you're not from the government or private sector, you are working in a private company, you need to be aware about the different procurement process. What is supply? So basically the term that we use, supply chain. How do we go into what is the process all about? There's also contract management. If you're managing a specific contract, you have awarded a contract to a contractor. This contractor is not coming to site regularly. What can you do? Can you just throw him out and give this work to another one? So it will depend on the conditions of the contract. So if you're working on contract, this part is going to be applicable for you. Risk management, how do you manage risk? How do you get your list of risk, and how do you plan for the risk? You have a risk response plan which is going to help you in risk management. You have health and safety, which is going to get in as well. Design with environmental constraint. What are you doing for design? We said at the beginning that environment is, we need to factor in environment nowadays. How are you taking care of the environment? Okay, an example, I built a line which need to cross a forest in Mauritius, so I had to cut around maybe 100 or 200 trees. Okay, so one of the conditions for me to be able to cut down these trees was that I plant, okay, not me but the CB plants like 3 times more trees. If I fell 100 trees, I need to replant 300 trees. So it is maybe part of the environment consideration, okay, to balance the environment aspect. This is maybe technical, soft skills and technical skills. Then we had like additional skills as a presentation of the report, good command of language and writing skills. Okay, the other presentation which I was telling you goes deeply into that. Technique, skills and modern engineering tools that you are using. This will appear in chapter number 5. Display leadership skills. What comes to your mind when we talk about leadership skills? How do you bring your team together? How do you manage conflict? Okay, not only you, but you have seen your supervising engineer maybe manage conflict. How do you manage conflict? You should be learning from these different aspects. How to conduct a meeting. Okay, this goes in line with the training we had in the morning. How to effectively conduct meeting. How to start your meeting on time. What is minutes of meeting. How to write it. What to write in there. Okay, who are those people who needs to be invited in a meeting. How to manage conflict as well in meeting. And knowledge of contemporary issues. So what's happening around you. It's not only about looking at your organization only. You need to be maybe as a from a let's call it a drone view. From a drone, what's happening in Mauritius. Maybe you have big projects. The biggest project is Metro Express. You need to be able to understand what's happening. What is a Metro Express? How is it working, and so on. Like contemporary issues in Mauritius and abroad as well. Okay, a few more slides. So we have reached maybe after your report is ready. How do you use the stage 2 go through? You have your eligibility certificate, which is maybe important for you to get a job and so on. Minimum 24 months of training, minimum. We mentioned about the technical report with the C6 chapters as well as competencies you need to demonstrate. The training logbook, which needs to be signed, filled and signed every 3 months. All these documents are needed for stage 2. Maybe a eligibility certificate, as mentioned, it doesn't form part of the framework as such, but it is important for you to get the job at the beginning. Okay, so you apply for stage 2. Within stage 2 now we have 2 steps. One step is a pre-interview assessment. As soon as you submit your report, it's going to be in soft copy as well. They are going to send it, CRPE is going to send it to different assessors, 2 or 3. They are going to read your report, and if there's anything which is missing, maybe a design aspect or things which need to be improved, they are going to maybe note this shortcoming, and you are going to get maybe another opportunity to modify, to add an addendum to your report. Okay, then you need to reapply for stage 2. If this is clear, the report is as per the format of the CRPE as required. You're going to go, so this is step 1, this is step 2. You're going to go through the interview process, which actually lasts for 1.5 hours approximately. So it's going to be on the technical report itself. It starts with a presentation by you, by the participant. So it's a 15 minutes presentation where you just talk about what you have been doing, what projects you have, maybe you want to present. Okay, you're confident about, you present that. It's just a way for you to break the ice, because we have seen that but participant, when they come, they are stressed. Okay, and to break the ice is just a way to give them like 10-15 minutes to just speak. They can prepare themselves well. It is advised to prepare yourself well for this process. Then you present, and then after that, questions are going to be asked. So during this presentation, actually there's no question. We just leave it to the participant to gain confidence and to get into his most comfortable maybe mood for questions later on. Okay, then if the interview is successful, you get registered, else you need to go back to the process. They will tell you maybe what are your shortcomings, and then you will need to improve. Payment, in terms of payment, we said that for eligibility stage is 500 rupees, for stage 2 slightly more, 2,500 rupees. If you need to reapply is 1,500 rupees. Upon registration, as soon as you get your registration, you will need to come to get your certificate and so on. You will need to pay the registration fee of 2,500, and then from then on, regularly, yearly, you will need to pay your fees, yearly fees to remain on the roll is going to be 1,500 rupees. If you miss 1 year, you will need to pay back, I think, with interest and so on. Okay, you are not kicked out of the roll, but you will need to pay whatever is outstanding for you. Okay, one question when I do this presentation in live, many ask me what is expected salary. Okay, I've included maybe a statistics for you we have seen from the net, just to give you an idea. Maybe at times when you're looking for a job, when you go for the interview, have a few engineers who are working with you. They go to the interview, they don't know what amount of money to ask, so this may give you like an PSU. Okay, since you're already getting a stipend of 24,000, so when you register, look for something slightly above. But more important is to get the experience and to create your network. Okay, don't look at the salary 30,000 is too little for me. I was looking for 40,000 rupees. But if you are getting a job, go for it. Get the experience. Create your network. Meet people. Create your network, and from then prove yourself. Okay, then things are going to work out for you. Okay, so this is just an example which I'm showing you. You have it on the net to give you an idea about how it's going to work out for you. So I think that is it from me. I think, yeah. So this is the last slide. Hopefully, in between interruptions that we have had with internet drop and so on, we have been able to share the maximum information with you. Hope it has been fruitful and you have got your what was your target for when coming to this presentation, this workshop. So if you have any questions, maybe we can take it up. If I don't know any questions that you have, participant, organizers, I leave it to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Ismail and Mr. Dalia for sharing your knowledge with us. It was very much appreciated. And yes, we wait for the questions.
Okay. Before the next question, Ismail and Nish, I'd just like to mention two things. So this training program at the Ministry of Labour will take Indian graduates in both the public and the private sector. So in the public sector, many organizations who employ in the public sector should do take these young graduates. But the program is specifically for 24 months. So when you complete your training of 24 months, you are back on the market, okay? Because they have to make a place for new graduates to join. So the problem, if you are in a public organization or by special body, if you do not complete or you do not prepare and cover maximum information when you're on training, then after 24 months, when your training is over, you do not get access to organizations. You can't go there. In some organizations, you have to get a course to get access, and it's difficult to get your training because you are no longer in training there, and your supervisor might not be interested to give you more support. So it is important, but you gather maximum information when you are on training, so that when you finish, your report is ready. I'm not saying, but I have already mentioned, you cannot submit your report before 24 months. But that doesn't mean that you cannot start writing your report and do maximum. Your report should be completed at 90% when you complete your 24-month training. Is just to reformat and add a few things that you would be doing on your 25th month, so that your report can be completed. So that is one thing. And there is no extension. Exceptionally this year, because of the confinement, so the Ministry of Labour has extended the training program by 3 months. So that is not going to happen again unless we represent confinement. Maybe there could be some, but there is no other reason that is indicated for to give extension. Okay. Well, now, the second is for those who are in the private sector. You know, in the public sector, government, I would say government contributes to 100% of the stipend, 24,000 rupees. Government pays the full of the stipend. In the public sector, in the private sector, government pays only 50% of the stipend. And so the private organization would have to make for the rest. So for the normally 12,000 and 12,000 being paid by each party. So when you are in the training in the private sector, as the organization is contributing to 50% of your stipend. The first thing, they would like to select the best candidate to be able to join their organization. So they apply to the ministry, and the Ministry of Labor gives them a list of about 10 graduates, and from that list they choose the best. Whereas in the public sector, whatever graduates they send to the public sector have to take them. So they can't choose them. Private sector, yes, there is a choice. And the second issue is what, when you are being trained in a private organization, you know all that training costs money, it takes time, and it costs money for the organization. So any private organization, when he recruits someone on training, he would not like to see that training go out of the 24 months training. So they would like to retain the training because we have trained them, and now they do the job. So they would like to retain that graduate. So just to tell you, in my own organization, I had 6 graduates on training. One had gone for further learning in the UK, and the other 5 has completed their training and they still working in my organization. And it is not only in my organization, it is everywhere in the private sector, where once the training is over, they keep the training. So when you have a choice now between a public and a private organization, you know what decision you have to take. Okay. So and then what I would also like to add is both for on training and the first scheme, the Institution of Engineers Mauritius normally would organize a Ministry of Labour centrally to IEM, and the institution organizes 2 workshops for each of its trainees. So that would mean the first workshop is normally held during the first 3-4 months of that training, but it is not necessarily 3-4 months, because once there is a batch of 50 graduates that has been posted by the ministry, when they set the list, and the institution organizes the first training, and I also participate in that first training. And when in the first workshop, and the second workshop is organized normally around the month 18 to 20th month of the training, so just 3-4 months before you complete your training. And that also I participate together with Ismail. Ismail would go in deeply on preparation of your report, how to write your report, how you have to behave yourself at the interview, how to prepare yourself when you have to face the interview, and I will normally explain to you the procedures about first step is submitting the report, getting the access, and the second step is those whose report has been found to be acceptable would then go for interview. So what would be done when you are already in the training? Not necessarily that only goes for in the Ministry of Labour, because I always, when there's a demand, I always try to request engineers who are not under training, young graduates and graduates who are not under training, and who wish to benefit from that workshop, I also invite them to join me. Okay. I would also like to mention, I've seen the salaries scale mentioned by Ismail. Okay. Then the 4,000 when you, 25,000 when you are a young trainee, but okay, when you start after your registration, it's 28,000, and then it's increasing. But I'm not sure. Normally when you are registered, you would expect to get a minimum of 30,000. Your private sector, 20 years experience, 4,000. So it would be minimum 80 to 100,000 rupees. Don't worry, it is not what a lawyer gets. It is not what a medical practitioner gets. But if you have chosen engineering, I think you chose it as a passion, because engineering is certainly different. You do engineering because you like engineering. You don't do engineering because you are running off the money. Doing engineering, you will never be able able to get to make money. Let's put it like that. People always say after 20 years, an engineer still drives in a double cab, and a lawyer after first year, second year, he already has his first BMW. Okay, right. So I think these are what I would like to mention. So I encourage you to have a good result when you complete your degree. So just to avoid having to go through the steps of having to undergo interview. So as I mentioned, if you have got a honors degree, most probably it would be automatic registration from any of our universities. Now there was a question about UDM from any of our universities, UTM, and University of Mauritius. If you've got a honors degree, you are most likely going to get automatic registration. Online application coming very soon. Those who do not have a course without honors, we would like to scrutinize our applicants' papers before deciding whether we would give eligibility direct or just to go for an interview. So that interview has not been cancelled entirely. It is there, but it's going to be for some exceptional cases. Okay? Mm-hmm. I think I've said everything, but anyway, if you have anyone have a question, just put your question and
I think there's a question of IT. Those from IT background. IT, software engineering, and so on.
Yeah. Okay. So you all know that an engineering degree has to be a 4-year full time. So there are some graduates who have done a 3-year degree, but this is not acceptable. So there are many 3-year degrees in electrical, mechanical, civil from other universities, but then you will have to complete your 4th year, which is the MN, before being able to apply. So all programs have to be eligible, have to be equivalent of 4 years full time of the baccalaureate or of the A-level. And the second question is that any engineering program has to have a good component, a reasonable component of engineering. Unfortunately, for example, in University of Mauritius, the degree in computer science, for example, is not acceptable because there is not sufficient engineering. IT software, there is not sufficient engineering. It is not only in Mauritius, it's everywhere for the world. So to be able to get a registration in Mauritius or even for international organizations like ICE, Institution of Civil Engineers UK, IMECI or IIT, you need to have a degree which is acceptable to different councils for the world. So which you have to check those who got degree in software or computer science or computer technology. Computer engineering, yes, it is engineering, but computer technology, in many cases, it is not accepted. Okay. So for those who have worked and supervised, for those who have worked and supervised in confinement, can avoid extension. Yes, you can avoid extension, but you will have to justify how you. What is the first question? What we will ask you? How did you continue your training and your supervised training when you were in confinement? So you will have to justify. Obviously, there are many organizations that continued working during confinement. But remember that you are on training. If you are under the scheme, under the Ministry of Labour scheme, you are on training and you are not supposed to work when there was confinement. But as training, you are not supposed to be like a frontliner or working in essential service. Okay? It's just a question of satisfying the council that you have been working during confinement. Okay.
I think there's a question from those who have got registration from overseas.
Yes, hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if I could for the stage of the registration process. I'm working as an electrical engineer, but I did my degree in mechatronics engineering. I just wanted to know about writing the report. Should it be based on the base degree mechatronics engineering, or can I do it only in electrical?
Yeah. Okay. When you have got the degree in one particular field, your registration will have to be in that particular field, and unless it is an allied subject, like for example, somebody has done, like just mentioned, manufacturing engineer, but when his training is purely in mechanical, so you would get a degree in a registration in mechanical, and not in manufacturing, because we consider manufacturing and mechanical to be allied, or industrial engineering, or there are many degrees which are allied. What I mean by allied is that 80 to 90 of a program or similar, when we consider them allied, we would be able to consider, we have already considered that there are cases where we have given registration in allied fields, not based on the first degree. But mechatronics is not an allied to neither electrical nor mechanical. It's a completely new program where there are large components of mechanical and electronics involved. So you cannot by being a graduate in mechatronics have a registration in electrical or mechanical. Your registration has to be in mechatronics. But you will have to demonstrate in your report that you had sufficient training in both mechanical and electrical or electronics. And you may not necessarily be having two supervisors. Exceptionally, we said, of course, that there is need to have two supervisors. If you don't have a mechatronics supervisor, you can have a mechanical or an electrical. But you must always consider that supervisor is not doing your job. Supervisor is just to ensure. So if you are a mechatronics engineer and for example, your supervisor is a mechanical engineer, he is a professional of the whole, and he will have to ensure that and the electrical components you are doing satisfactorily, even without supervision. So it's going to be a special case that we will have to consider when you submit your report. Most probably, there will be queries from the council, from the registrar to you, and you have to justify to be able to go to the second step and interview. We make it easier, but it is not always simpler for you, because you have to realize what there are 32 fields of engineering which are registered by CRPE, right?
So should it be 50-50, like 50 electrical and 50% mechanical in the report?
Not necessarily 50-50, but it cannot be 100% mechanical and 0% electrical. So I would say anything between 30 and 70 in either field would be considered acceptable. This is my personal view. Don't quote me when you write your report, but this is like a guide which I'm giving you. But it cannot be zero. You cannot do only one field and then expect to get registration. Maybe I don't know whether there are some students in chemical and environmental engineering from University of Mauritius. So that is also we had some issues in the past, because when they come out, they do training in either one field or whatever, either 2 years in chemical or full 2 years in environment. So when they have to be registered, so in what field do we give them? We have to give them in both chemical and environment, but if they don't satisfy the minimum of training in environment, we have done only chemical, so we will not get it. So these are difficulties that some graduates are getting, because when you got a mixed degree, you have to demonstrate that you are getting training in the different fields where you got your degree. And this is why I keep on saying that the first 2 years, the first 24 months of your training, you are not going to work, you are not supposed to be working, you are supposed to be on training, and you have to try to move around in that organization and try to do different things. If you one simple example. If you join one organization and you are sent to do tendering only for 24 months, you will come to CRPE. You will not be getting your registration because you have been doing only one activity for 2 years. So if you are installing air conditioning in another organization as a contractor, you will not get your registration because you will be getting. I always say you're getting 1 month training repeated 24 times. But this is not acceptable. You have to show 24 month training in all the attributes that Ismail had shown you in the slides. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
There's one question for those who have registered from abroad, maybe Canada or UK, like chartered engineer and so on. From what I know, they need to go through the stage. Not a report, I think they just need to have an extended CV. Is it still the same?
There are two other procedures. This is a normal procedure, that is 2 years training after graduation. We have another procedure for those who have completed 10 years practice but have not had registration. So I think there was a question of that and I asked that colleague to call me. We also organize workshops for those who have completed more than 10 years training, 10 years working experience, but have not come to training. So they do not have to submit a report as you would do for after 2 years. They have to submit an extended CV, and there is a procedure for the extended CV. There is a format. There is no necessity to show supervised training because we feel that 10 years practice as an engineer within commerce. You are not an engineer yet, but there's not necessarily required to show that you have been supervised for 10 years. So we have one procedure for that. And then obviously we have a procedure for all those who are chartered engineers from overseas and who want to not only chartered engineers from overseas. You may be here in Mauritius and have applied and got your chartered, and you were not registered, and there is a simpler procedure is that you don't have to submit neither the extended CV nor a report, but you have to submit the same document that you submitted for chartered, and then we would just organize an interview. And if you satisfy that, you will get that registration. Okay? For those in building services engineering, yes, a building services engineer registered with council can supervise both an electrical and mechanical engineer because obviously supervise in the organization where the trainee is working. The building services has got a specific competence in building services. If the trainee is doing building services, yes, you will be able to supervise. Yes. Is there any issue if ever I am on a non-accredited engineering course? If the degree is not accredited by which organization? If the degree is not accredited by university, by an international organization, it would not be recognized locally by CRPE, and yes, there will be an issue. When you say non-accredited, that term is a bit not clear. All programs which are run by local universities in Mauritius are accredited, right? And all programs which are run by overseas universities are accredited to Washington Accord organization. So for those who are that organization, what is Washington Accord? I would invite you just to go on the web, just type Washington Accord, and there's a lot of information. Washington Accord is an organization what has been set up a long time back to ensure that decrees in the various countries which form part of Washington Accord are to the same level so that they can encourage mobility of engineers. So Mauritius is not yet in Washington Accord. We are working towards it. The good news for University of Mauritius, the degree in civil, electrical and mechanical have been approved, but the next intake, that is from 2021 this year, who's joining the University of Mauritius if the procedure is completed. When they come out in 2025, they will be recognized to Washington Accord students. Okay, any other question? Today there is a change also in the legislation regarding programs run by local universities. So the Higher Education Act imposes now on all tertiary education institutions to have a degree approved by HEC, Higher Education Commission, and in the law it says that these degrees must also be approved by the respective council. So if they are providing a program in engineering, it has to be approved by CRPE. In architecture, it has to be approved by architects. In law, it has to be approved by law council. And so all these programs have to be approved by the respective council before HEC gives permission to the institution to run the course. So that is already on, and applications are coming regularly to see for CRP for approval. Okay, Ismail, you want to add or any more questions?
I think it's okay. We have covered, I think, most of what we have to cover. I think we have answered the question as well. Okay, so maybe we can hand over to yeah.
If anyone has a question regarding CRP, they can write to the registrar, and normally these questions are being circulated to council members, and we try to respond as far as possible. So there's one last question from Darren. Is the CRP recognized abroad? Should I go through a registration process again abroad if I'm already a registered engineer? No, CRPE is not registered abroad, recognized abroad. CRPE is by law and a regulatory body in Mauritius who recognize and give registration to people practicing locally. So now, if you go abroad, you have to demonstrate to a regulatory body overseas that you are allowed your certificate. It is the same. A doctor or a lawyer coming to work in Mauritius have to be registered by the local regulatory body. So it is the same. An engineer coming from overseas, you are registered in the UK. You come to practice in Mauritius, you have to be registered by the CRP. So it is not like a university degree, but CRP gives. It is just by law a permission, like a license to practice. That's a bit easier. Okay? Okay.
I think
that's all from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Dalia, Chairman of the CRP. I think we can hand over to the organizing team, maybe for a closing comment. Maybe Ms. Zulaika.
Yes, thank you everyone for staying and listening to this talk. I'm sure it will be very fruitful to you. And we will be sending FOE students a link to join IT. Maybe you can be part of the organizing team and learn something from us and win CPDs. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.